Greg Mescall here. Thanks for joining us with more At Home with USA Water Polo. Appreciate everyone taking some time to join us here on Facebook Live. Great guest here, longtime water polo coach Gabriel Martinez, heads up all the women's water polo programs with Commerce Aquatics, a well-known club in the USA Water Polo system, and also head coach of women's water polo at Fullerton College. Gabriel, good to talk with you.
Oh, good to have you. And thank you for inviting me in. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, for those that follow At Home, we sent out a video earlier this week, a talk you did a little while back on kind of skill progression. And it seemed like a great thing to jump into now because with COVID, with the pandemic, people can't play water polo the way they used to. But a lot of coaches have been talking about this is a great time to work on your fundamentals. And it seemed like you'd be a great person to talk to. Just watching some of that video, you kind of really break down a lot of the little details, I think, that help make a player complete. And so we'll kind of look back at some of that and kind of just maybe see if there's a current day take on it. But as you've, I'll start with this, as you've kind of adapted to this COVID time, when you're talking to your players or whatever pool time you can have, if you're able to have any, how have you been able to work on some of those fundamentals considering there isn't any competition right now?
Well, when we first started coaching, when I first started coaching here, Esteban and I have been here for a long time, and we figured out like there's certain things that we felt that 10-unders needed to know when they're, moving on to 12-unders and 12s and moving 14, stuff like that. And we said we got to write this stuff down, and we got to make sure that we can hold ourselves accountable and making sure that we're doing our job and giving everything that we have to the kids. And we started writing down that progression. And it was like, they need to know this before they can do that, and so on and so forth. And that's how we came together. Esteban and I and Gary came together with putting that progression stuff together, as well as we did that in the water. And if you look at the progression, you look at the video, it's, for the most part, it was all individual development. It wasn't necessarily team development. It was just individual development. That way they can motivate themselves and say, you know what, I want to be able to do whatever that is required to do so I can get to the next step. And it really, really helped us. And we sent it to everybody. So if you're 10 and under, we would send it to them. So when they would wake up in the morning, they could see it. So if they went to brush their teeth in the morning, it was on their mirror or whatever it was. And it really started helping us and helping the athletes. And we could see the snowballing starting to happen. We also did that now with the COVID, and because we are a city run program and we are in LA County, and we've been hit really, really hard over here. With whether it's family members or whether it's, we've all been hit really, we're a blue collar city. We are essential workers here. We have all our parents going to work, and unfortunately, a lot of them have, lost jobs. So we put something together to keep the kids feeling good about themselves. And we put different dry land stuff that they could do, or if they had a small pool or whatever resources they had. We also had a day where they came in and we assigned them a water polo ball because they couldn't buy their own. So we assigned them the water polo ball. This is your water polo ball. No one else should touch it unless you clean it. We didn't, at the time in March, we didn't know a lot. And so we started moving along. We started figuring out what we could and couldn't do. But at the time, we gave them the ball and we told them, and we started doing Zoom meetings, and we're doing this against the wall and passing the ball and doing different hands and doing different exercises. We have one of our coaches who just does a training at home. She uses water bottles. She uses whatever you have at home. And she does a workout every day for them for 45 minutes, and they all sign on. And depending on what age group you are or how old you are, the older girls will go, or the older kids, I should say, because boys and girls will go Tuesday, Thursday, and the younger ones will go Monday, Wednesdays. And that's really helped us.
Not to get off topic, but you hit on something important there. I think you and the rest of the staff at Commerce have always known that you're important to the kids that come and play, but I don't think any of us have ever encountered a moment like this when you've been able to kind of help out, even in a small way, right? You're giving someone a water polo ball. You're kind of maybe providing a distraction for families that are going through some tough stuff. What's that been like to be able to just bring something a little positive into some tough situations for the families?
for us in our program, and because our program is so united, and so because we're neighbors, we're sisters, we're brothers, we're cousins, we're all so close, to not see each other in some cases at the beginning of COVID, because we didn't know enough about it, they couldn't go visit their grandma. So our little kids they were hurting. It was really tough not to see their friends, not to see their family members. It was really hard. So when we started doing this stuff, it really helped them. And at the beginning of COVID, our coaching staff, so we have 4 coaches. It's myself, Esteban, Diana, and Priscilla. And we would all call the athletes. So one day I would call the 1800s. And then especially at the beginning when everybody was, especially in LA, when we were locked down and we were at home all day, we had to reach out and see how they were doing and tell them that everything's going to be okay, because they were scared. Family members were getting scared. And as we got further along, we started getting family members sick, on ventilators. And thank God we haven't had anybody pass away, but close to it. So, and then we would reach out to that individual every day. How are things going? How's your grandma? How's this person? Just so they feel like they have, and our extended family is still together.
Yeah, this is a great point. I think we've gotten very deep into the whole tactics and skills and stuff like that over this last 6 or 7 months. But you've highlighted what many people already know, is that so many of these water polo clubs are families. There are families involved, and so to not be around and not be able to train, be with each other has been a challenge. But it's also been a great way to keep people connected and kind of linked up, so that when you can get back in the pool, people are going to feel like they're still part of something.
Yeah, we do our best.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Just to go back to some of the skills stuff for those that are trying to work on some things at home. So, in your talk, you were talking about obviously some offensive work and some defensive work. I feel like every player, even young ones, as they get better, they want to feel like they're a valuable part of the team. They want to have a role. They want to be able to do their part. And there's so much more to that than just scoring a goal or making a goalie save. Let's start on the offensive end. And this is things that you could do now, even if you're not having access to a pool. What are just some of those basic things that people could do, young athletes could work on, to feel like maybe they're still making some progress towards helping their team when they can get back together?
And we always have, so a part of our workout before COVID was, we have a softball program in the city that's our main competitor. Our softball, water polo, volleyball, and soccer are always competing for the local athletes in the city. And they work out in the same park that we do. And I figured out, how are these kids throwing the ball so hard? How do softball players throw the ball so hard? So I'd watch their workouts, and we started mimicking what they were doing and throwing the ball. And we started working on, so we have like a progression passing pattern where we pass one with another partner, and then we go into groups of 3 and we pass clockwise, counterclockwise, and then we do and this is really good too, because you can do it against the wall. So our kids started doing these drills against the wall. So they would pass against the wall, then they would turn to the side and receive the ball cross face, receive the ball on the strong side. And some of this terminology may be different than other people, but I hope that everybody understands it. And then we start working on, they can do peripheral passes against the wall too. So they're staring at, I don't know, their kitchen. Hopefully they're not doing it inside. Forget it.
Parents everywhere said, please, no. Yeah.
I take that back. I'm sorry. But they're outside and doing it against a fence, and they're staring to the yard, and then passing the ball to the fence. And you can work on your peripheral passing, going in both directions. And those are some of the individual skills. If you have a brother, that really helps. If you have 2 or brother and sister, you can pass in a group of 3, and that really, really helps with your ball handling skills and being able to use your peripheral vision better. And obviously changing some of the stuff that we would do too is changing our release points from, we call it a teardrop pass to, we call it around the horn this way, over our head, around the horn, that kind of stuff too, So I hope that everybody understands our commerce lingo.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you've been involved in water polo, a lot of that stuff makes sense. Maybe I'm a little biased, right? Haven't heard this stuff for a while, but and then on the defensive end, obviously you're talking about things you can do with the ball outside of the pool. Maybe it's hard to replicate, or maybe if you're the sibling or the family member that's trying to guard against some of these moves you're talking about. But what are some kind of dry land defensive movements you can try and make to stay fresh?
Um, because where we're at, we usually have a brother and sister,
Mhm.
and some of the stuff that we did, and some of the kids were using their moms and their grandmas to do the drills, which is hilarious because we would see them on Zoom, and it was hard to keep my composure because I'd be laughing because the grandma was participating, getting involved, and getting super competitive, and I'm like, oh my god, please don't get hurt. And we do a drill called box drill, where because of our vertical limitations, I guess I would say, we have small girls and they have to be quick. They have to anticipate. They got to know where the ball's at. So we do a drill called box drill, and it's basically your center defense. So we got to figure out how to front and how to maintain our front, understand the cage, where you're at with respect to the cage, where you are with respect to 2 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters, and now 6 meters, and how to get correct position. And that was part of our dry land workouts. So when we went into COVID, we would automatically tell girls terminology like, today we're working on J drill, and they knew exactly what we're talking about. And that's just, some people say extra stroke, so we call it a J drill. The box drill, center defense, and you can do it vice versa too. If you can be a good center defender, you can be a good center. That's our philosophy. We teach everybody everything, and so that in box drill they can cover both positions, offensively and defensively. But in box drill, usually we're really focusing on the defense.
There are some people that have access to a pool. Maybe they have a pool in their backyard, or the local pool is open, but there's limitations. They can maybe use a lane. They can't really get up and down and play. There are some places in the country where they're back to playing, and we're thrilled for those folks. They're able to do that in a safe and healthy manner. But for a lot of people they're unable to do that. So I'm thinking about the athlete that maybe has some water access. And you often hear when coaches are talking about an athlete, they'll say something like they move really well in the water, right? Or they just have good body control in the water, not necessarily referring to just swimming up and down the pool. What are things people can do? Let's say you're just on your own in the lane. How can you try and work on things to get to move better in the water?
I know for us, we have a minimal amount of space in our practice. So again, I'm saying this stuff for this COVID transitioning into dry land or transitioning to one lane, because in LA we cannot play yet. We are not allowed to compete. Our girls, our athletes will come in and they do lap swims. So they have a lane to themselves right now. Yeah. And what we do, we're having them do it, and I can't. And in LA County, we cannot coach them. So I give them they come in, they choose a workout, and they can do whatever they want. So some of the stuff that we are doing is horizontal lunges, moving with the ball in hand and going from vertical back to horizontal. We do defensive drills like we call it ninja, which is just exploding up over your hip. And again, they start with little kids, so we have to name these drills. Something exciting, something different. We can't just give them a random name because that's just boring, coach. So we call it be a ninja and steal that ball or whatever, and they love it. And we can another drill called teapot and lead hand, and it's all within defensive drills that help you go from an exploding move into a lunge for a steal, or getting up over your hips for a steal, or getting up over your hips for a shot block. And this is all stuff that you can do within the lane. Offensively, always simulating that you have a ball in your hand, and we call it being in double threat at all times, or swimming in double threat, and that really works for us too. Just making sure that you're in a double threat position and you're able to swim with the ball and move with the ball at the same time, in a vertical, going from vertical to horizontal. That's been really helpful for us if you have a lane.
We talked a little offense, defense. You talked about a shot block before. And I know that shot blocking is not the most, let's say, attractive stat, but it is vital. and it is a thing that can really change the course of the game. And you know, it's like the people that love to shot block are like the offensive linemen of water polo. If you want to do that, you may go unnoticed, but the coach will know.
Yes.
What's something along those lines to work on that when you're by yourself? How do you kind of try and perfect that if you're alone or you only have a partner?
I think that a lot, I mean, we always talk about if we're going to be shot blocking is squaring up our shoulders to the shooter. And that's something that you can always get better at and going from, we call it, again, I apologize for our water polo lingo, but we call it elevator drills. So it's like an elevator. You go up and down, but at the same time, you're doing it with your hands. So you have one hand up in a shot blocking position, and you elevate up to your highest point, come back down, and keeping the same position, elevating, and then sliding from side to side without changing your shoulder positioning, and then switching arms and doing the same thing. That's really good for us. That's something that we do as part of our warm-up to warm up our legs, to get good shot blocking, and above all, getting good muscle memory. I think establishing that good muscle memory early is important.
We're talking with Gabriel Martinez, longtime coach with Commerce Aquatics, and you can watch Gabriel, a lot of other coaches, give great insight, feedback, lessons on the USA Water Polo High Performance YouTube page, also on the USA Water Polo mobile coaches app. Hundreds of videos, lots physically distance specific, depending on where you're at in the U.S. and what sort of training you need. One of the things you said that I loved in that video, you talked about the idea of repetition. You want to see people, especially at those younger age groups, as they work up, you have them do a drill and they do it again and again and again. I know that can get a little boring, but what's the benefit of repetition? What have you seen from putting that into practice? How helpful is it in athlete development?
I think it's essential. At times it can get boring, but we try to switch it up, but we go right back to it and do it again. And we may switch it up to no dribble and come right back to it. If that athlete hasn't perfected it or done it correctly, we'll come back to it and do it again. And then eventually they'll get that correct muscle memory. So in a game, whatever the conditions are in the game, whether it's raining or whether it's hot, whether it's windy, whatever the condition, they're going to go to that muscle memory that they did over and over and over and over again. And you know that you're going to be able to trust them, that they're going to be able to do whatever needs to get done correctly.
Really, really good stuff here. One of the things I was thinking about that's hard to replicate without being together, 6-on-5, 5-on-6. That's so vital. The repetition part of it, which teams practice that stuff night and day. But then the other is that you need the people around you to do it. Anything people can do to try and work towards that, even if they're not in a team setting?
I know for us, and I can only speak for us, that's probably the only part of the game where we do specialization. So if you're, on the 4-5, on the 6 side, or if you're on the 1 side, that's the only area where on 6-on-5 offense where we do specialization. And this is something that our girls would do within their own individual lanes, is understand, like, I am on this side of the pool, I'm in double threat, and I'm sliding, and I'm working on my 6-on-5, creating that angle so I can get my shot off. It's hard to duplicate receiving the pass unless you have a sibling. In our case, our kids, for the most part, don't have pools in their backyard. There are some that do, but and receiving a pass from their brothers and sisters sometimes aren't, they're doing their best with it, but mimicking, understanding offensively how to move, how to create that angle to get your shot off, whether it's moving forward, whether it's moving back, whether it's moving to your right, whether it's moving to your left, and what type of movement are you going to go? Are you going to go an up and slide? We call it a swim slide, or what kind of movement, or just just staying in double thread into a slide. And those are 3 slides that we work on that are really, really helpful for us in a 6-on-5. As far as a 5-on-6 is concerned, a lot of it that we do is over the head. We call it overhead knockdowns, or we call it overhead shot blocking, or we call, over hip shot blocking, over hip knockdowns, and that's stuff that they can do within their lane. It's hard to simulate. They got to use their imaginations and see that the field players there and making sure that they're squaring up. And this goes back to what we talked about earlier on the shot blocking and squaring up my shoulders for a shot block and stuff like that. And It's been interesting.
There's no doubt about it. Coaches have had to get.
I see them in the pool and I can't coach them and I cannot correct them, but watching them do it, it's been fun because they're teaching themselves, and I guess that's a good way of learning.
Hopefully that leads to them maybe feeling a bit more empowered when they're in a game, right? That they have you and the coaching staff to rely on, but they also know they can do it themselves.
Yeah.
I'm talking here with Gabriel Martinez. Now, of course, water polo will at some point come back to full strength as we know it. I love to ask coaches of any age group this, but when you're thinking about a primary fundamental, I'll make the comparison to the old food pyramid, where on the bottom would be kind of your fruits and vegetables, right? And then you'd work your way up, at the top is like cake or donuts. In this analogy, at the top is probably your helicopter skip shot, and down here, what is the baseline one or two things, the must-haves, the things you should always work on that will help be the ultimate foundation to adding on all the other skills?
I mean, I think the swimming part, the conditioning, I think that's for us in water polo, there's got to be some kind of conditioning involved, or I think you're going to get injured. There's got to be some kind of being fit and being in shape. You don't have to be in your top shape, but there's got to be some kind of conditioning involved. The ball handling, I think, is really important. I'm doing a lot of drills within ball handling. I think is very, very important for us. And I think the last one would be just the imagination in the game, and being creative, I think is really important too.
Really, really good stuff. Hey, Gabriel, before we let you go, obviously we've been highlighting many commerce athletes this week and next as part of Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx Heritage Month. Commerce has had such a big impact in this area in the water polo community. When you think back on the athletes that have come from that program, obviously everyone knows Brenda Villa, but you think about Brenda, Patty, the ones that have gone to other colleges. What has it meant to you and the commerce folks to kind of be the example of a strong impact on water polo from the Hispanic community?
It means a lot. I think that we come from a lower middle income, and we are trying to do our best to get these kids opportunities to move on and see things besides, East LA. And there's bigger and better things in East LA. And a lot of times, you hear wild stories within East LA of kids that do not make it in their whole lives. They've stayed in East LA, and it's just a shame. But for our kids, it's important that they understand that water polo is a stepping stone to bigger and better things in life. And we have a good relationship with the swim coach here, and we have the same philosophy, and we are constantly working together and talking together to try to get our kids to understand the value of an education and the value of having a vision that I can go, and the great thing about our program too is when they do reach whatever goals that they've reached, whether it's playing internationally, whether it's playing at a Division I program, they always come back. We have an alumni game every year, and they always come back, and it's a lot of fun for our little girls to see our older girls, our alumni, and that they've become doctors, or they've become, working in the finance departments and run their own businesses and been very successful, written books, and our girls, I can do that. And that's been huge within our community, because now some of the other sports that are trying to mimic what we're doing, our volleyball team's trying to get the college and understand how important it is to go to college.
We've been talking, especially during the last couple of months, there's been rightfully a great focus on diversifying the sport of water polo, getting more people to play. It's something that you and the Commerce Group have been doing for decades, right? So you're trailblazers in this regard, ones that have led the charge. But when you start to see the sport get more diverse beyond commerce, do you feel like the Commerce Group had a little hand in that and kind of helping spread awareness and maybe let people know that it's a sport that everyone can play?
I hope so. I really, really do. We, as a coaching staff within LA, have worked really, really hard to show that little Latinas can do really, really well in the sport, and beyond beyond just playing sports, but we can do really, really well and succeed and compete against some of the best players in our country, and especially in girls water polo. If you're competing at the highest level in our country, that means you're competing at the highest level in the world, because you can see what our women's national team is doing to teams outside our country, and it just motivates our girls when hats off to Adam and everything that he's done for women's water polo, because it's trickled down to us and letting our girls know, we are not just good in Los Angeles or in California or in the United States, but we can compete with anybody.
Very cool.
That's really helped with the community here. So a lot of, especially in Los Angeles, in the area we're at, there's a lot of little girls that are out there and that are looking up to or trying to do what we are doing here at Commerce. And I hope they're very successful at it.
No, it's fantastic. And you're so right. I've told the story often, and I'm sure you know this as well. Years ago, Brenda Villa being interviewed and asking, who was her athletic idol? Who did she look up to as a kid? And it wasn't a water polo player. It was Fernando Valenzuela, the great Dodgers pitcher, who's amazing, right? But now the younger kid at Commerce can look up to the athletes that have come before. So exactly what you're talking about, there's now been an example set to follow.
Yes.
Gabriel, always good to talk with you. Thanks so much for the time. Hope that you and the rest of the group in LA can get back in the water safely soon. You can coach them up, and then we'll see you back at a water polo tournament soon.
Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe and protect yourselves.